They can wear pink jumpsuits and live in tents until they're shot. I'm sorry.
Then wear the armor.
I don't have an opinion on that. Huh?
Yeah, then wear the armor.
Yeah. Think of into armor test dummies?
That's it. The rest of the armor brought me there.
And
Denny,
other-
you talked a lot about DOD's involvement in this. The U.S. Nuclear Regulatory Commission is big on counterfeit parts as
Yeah.
well. They put out their big thing's generic letters, it's 89 something or other, where we had to write a plan to prevent counterfeit parts. And one of our customers said that we had installed a counterfeit pump. And that brought down all kinds of wrath from the NRC. Fortunately, after they checked everything, it was not. They claimed that we had put in a refurbished part, said it was new.
Yeah.
It wasn't, it was a new part.
Yeah.
But, yeah, the inspectors that we had visiting us for a long period of time was a very unpleasant situation. So
Yeah.
they're big on
Yeah.
it too, because you would not want a reactor to just kind of explode because the vessel
Yeah,
is not
yeah,
good.
right. You don't want it to go to critical mass
No,
because
you'd rather that not
your
happen.
control system had a bad part in it.
Define
And that
kind
doesn't-
of explode.
It doesn't go over too big. So yeah, I mean, it's throughout the industry. No, and they prey on the nuclear industry, the DOD, the space, because they buy small quantities. Yeah, you know, I worked in the space industry when I first got into this business. To us, mass production was 10 a year. You know, versus HP or IBM that puts out hundreds of thousands of computers a year. We don't have much pull anymore, and that's part of what gets us into the situation we're in. Plus, if you're in the DoD business, like I said, you got a lot of stuff that's been around 20 years. And it's getting hard to support it. And if you go up and tell a manufacturer, you know, this is used in the DoD, and you know, we're supposed to support this stuff for 20 years. You should be supporting us. This is your defense. This is your soldiers saving your freedom. They don't
Where's
really
the
work
money?
too well. Where's the money? Show me the money.
And
And
in
if
their
you really
defense-
want to add one on top of this, DOD had a lot of solutions for handling this problem internally, including making their own parts, which they allowed manufacturers to talk them out of.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure I want the DoD in the parts business.
Well,
But in defense of the manufacturers, they can't get the parts to keep their tooling running either, so.
Well,
they're in
that's
the
the
same
whole
position
thing. It's
DOD is.
a-
I can't make that part
Yeah.
for you, because I can't get the machinery to tool it anymore.
It's that old movie. It's a catch-22. You can't keep maintaining the equipment, which is why most people go to contract manufacturers. That's why we did it at Honeywell. We didn't want to pay to update our equipment. So we went to somebody who has the new equipment, and that's all they do. You know, at Honeywell, you got all this other equipment, you got test equipment, you got computers, you got software stuff that you got to maintain. So they get rid of stuff that they say is not core competency. When you're an engineering company, manufacturing is not your core competency. So
What
they
is it?
start moving this stuff out. Engineering.
Design.
Design. So yeah. The industry has really brought this on itself by the way it's gone and the way it's changed. And the only thing you can do is you cannot stop it. You just have to learn how to work with it and how to mitigate the risk. And that's the whole thing behind the law. The law is not that you're going to go to jail if I get counterfeit parts. It's you're going to go to jail if you don't try and prevent that from happening. Any more questions?
do you
Really?
have,
Oh,
do you have anything in there on the MDA problem?
the MDA.
Missile Defense Agency problem?
No. I've heard about it, but I don't.
So if you want to know what the impact of this problem is, right now Missile Defense Agency has $1.5 billion worth of counterfeit product installed in weapons, which are in silos.
Yeah.
That's 1.5 billion.
Yeah.
Then some of that either has to be retested or fixed. If you'd like a measure of how the impact of this is, are you all familiar with the Airborne Laser Laboratory? It will be going to Dennis Moffett for disassembly next month, because there's no money to pay for it anymore, because they have to pay for that $1.5 billion mistake.
Yeah, yes. Karen?
This GuideNet database that DOD uses,
Uh-huh.
is it just as problems turn up, or do they actually do some investigation?
No, it's as problems, the whole industry is, the way the notifications go out, it's as problems turn up. IHS has a branch of ERAI, and basically they concentrate on counterfeit parts and notifications of suspect counterfeit parts, what parts may have been provided by somebody that were not counterfeit.
So there's no
there's-
preventive
No.
mechanism in place, okay.
Just, it's all in what's been identified, so that you can go out and you can watch for them. But there's nothing really in place to prevent the counterfeit parts from coming in, because you never know what they're gonna counterfeit. Depends on what they can find. I mean, they literally just go out on the web and they put in a part number, and they'll find somebody that has that part number, and then they may bring it in and remark it to a mil-spec part number. We found a transistor on one of our products that had the mil-spec part number on it, but it was made in Hong Kong. Well, that was the part was manufactured 3 years before a Hong Kong facility was approved for that part. So, you know, they were smart. Hong Kong did eventually build that part. They just didn't build it back then when markings on the part said it was built. So you gotta watch out for things like that. And the thing is, most mil specs are not readily available anymore. Honeywell belongs to IHS, which is an international hardware standard. And they have all the mil specs. They have all the archived mil specs. You can go back. When we were investigating this transistor, I went back and looked at QPLs that went all the way back to 1978. Qualified parts list. Again, most contract manufacturers are small companies. The company I'm going to see tomorrow has, what, 50 employees, John?
Yes.
Something like that. They can't afford to subscribe to that. That costs a lot of money. That's probably one operator for a year. So it's hard to really trace this stuff unless you have the resources to do it. That's why it's the big companies, the Honeywells, the Boeings, and the Lockheeds, they can afford to combat this stuff. The smaller companies can't, which is why now the DOD is saying, hey, you got to go and help your subcontract manufacturers do these risk assessments and control these counterfeit parts.